And here we are. As horrible as that sounds, I never know how to start these things off. How are you? How's the weather? How's the family? I need to stop because there's going to be a little voice in the back of my head. Stop talking to them. They can't answer you. I don't know what to say. So, no. Today's actually not serious. It's gonna be more relaxed video. So you can put me on in the background and you can listen to me. Um, I wanted to spitball some stuff off my head and onto the wall and metaphorical mind, as it were. Um, so because here's the thing, Bethesda, be it right, be it wrong, be it whatever, it come to my knowledge, they're still releasing updates for the anniversary edition and what is it? The new game Skyfall? I don't know, whatever. Skyforge, Starforge, whatever. That one, that thing, I don't remember. um, that's going to get pushed out in the coming years, and then it's going to go straight to Elder Scrolls 6 stuff, which means I need to make this kind of video if I care about this topic fairly soon. Otherwise, I might as well not even bother. So this is going to be a long, drawn out, kind of bumbling everywhere type of talking point because I have sat on this for a few days and I didn't know how to approach it. Because my mind is whirling and I need to get this video out kind of as therapy for my own mind, for my own sanity. So it's not that anything is horribly bad. It's not that anything is like the world is going to end or nothing. Nothing like that. This is just me trying to make sense of the world. And I pause because I know everyone's going to be laughing. So there's no like background music because I was thinking of talking points more than production value. But you know, in the future, I'll think of production value more and talk less. I'll talk less in these talking points. Because that's how that works. Uh, so what are we actually talking about today? Well, mostly Skyrim, but in a broad spectrum, Bethesda games. So, um, we're mostly going to talk about Skyrim SE and Anniversary Edition, and what happened. And we're going to address the video I made back when Skyrim Special Edition came out that never had a conclusion put forward to it. And the reason we never had a conclusion to it is because we never got to the point where a conclusion was ready. Just straight up. There was never a point where a conclusion was, okay, we're at that point now. We can say yay or nay. No, it's that video, in case you haven't watched it, it was to the point where it was like, okay, Skyrim Special Edition came out. We didn't even have the script extender yet. I want to say that half the old mods weren't even ported over yet, or a version of them, even a knockoff version of most of the popular mods weren't even out yet. And my advice was, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what the mod community can do, and then that'll be that. And then we'll come back and we'll say, okay, yes or no, because a lot of us were still on Old Rim. By the way, I will be referring to Skyrim as either Old Rim or Skyrim 32. and I'll be referring to Skyrim Special Edition as either and Skyrim Anniversary Edition as either those or Skyrim 64. Don't worry if you don't understand, just roll with it. Um, and in case any of you are wondering, how much time have I really played Skyrim? Boom, that amount of time. Because, some people that I've seen a lot of people make these type of videos and they have like 400, 300 hours. I have close to like 2,600 hours and I feel bad. So let's get that out of the way. Let's move on. And yeah, so why have we never got to that point with special edition? Well, the problem is that special edition. Hang on just a second. The problem is with special edition, what we had was a lot of mods got ported over, and in the beginning, a lot of people just straight up ported their old mods over to the new page in the Nexus, which is where most people started to go because they've been trained to go there, right? In the early stages, the problem is that old RIM and new RIM have completely different ways of triggering it because old RIM is on a 32-bit engine, 32-bit creation engine. New RIM is on a 64-bit creation engine, and so you can't do it the same way. You'll have issues. There are some exceptions, but usually you'll just have issues. Texture files usually are fine most of the time. Sometimes you get a little glossy, but you just can't hot swap. So that most of that got sorted out, and so what ended up happening is a lot of people were waiting for the script extender. That came out, and then Bethesda announced they're going to have the Creation Club, and we all thought the Creation Club was going to be really good. I was actually semi-excited for it because I didn't know what it was going to be, and then we saw what it was, and we're like, well, that's okay, but it's not the end of the world. We don't have to buy that stuff. And maybe occasionally it might come up with a small thing we might want. So I wasn't completely negative about it until we figured out that every time they put something in the Creation Club, it broke the script extender, which broke a good portion of our mods for those that mod. Um, so, um, a lot of us ended up hating the Creation Club just on functionality reasons. We just hated it. Not to mention, the more you thought about it, the more you realize that no matter what they call it, it is microtransactions in a single player offline game. No matter how you try to word it, right? That's what it is. And Elder Scrolls and Fallout, for the most part, have always been these games that have been highly moddable. There's always been a selling point for these games. And here comes this feature that makes it extremely hard to do this thing. Okay. This I was halfway expecting a VIP of Bethesda to come out, or Todd Howard himself to come out and go, "We're taking the franchise and the company in a new direction." Because I was going to respond with, "I'm taking my money also in a new direction." But here's the thing: I got Special Edition for free, and I'm thankful for it. I really am. So it's really hard for me to be angry at something I got for free. But I'm gonna be honest with you. Had I known what I known later on, I never would have bought Special Edition, especially what it has devolved into. And it's not because I wouldn't have moments where I would want to play with it and poke and prod it. It's just, uh, it's like having a house you have to constantly build back up every couple of days. It's not worth it. And this is why whenever I go to install a Skyrim, I have to ask myself, do I want to install Special Edition or do I just want peace of mind to install Old Rim? Now, for those who are not familiar with installing mods with Old Rim, it's a little bit more of a process. Um, it's not much, but it is a little bit more of a process, especially with the EMB boost, because you have to account for the 32-bit memory problem, and you can mostly solve it for the most part, or rather, there's a workaround for it, but it involves you to be more in depth with the modding uh, situation. Um, So yeah, I have, and I can do either one. It's just how much time do I want to invest in fixing said things, and I basically like I install Special Edition and I knock on wood, and I basically cross my fingers and I go, well, I hope they don't break it too fast this time, because the problem when they break it is there's always a chance that the mods you use are not going to they're not going to get updated or fixed. There's always a chance that they're going to be left behind. There's always a chance that you're just going to have to make do with less and less of your mods. There's always these chances, right? And and yeah, there's downgraders, and I I also know how to go into Steam and roll back my executionable to an earlier model, but it, that is almost more work than just using Old Rim. I mean, to be totally honest, right? So, and one of the sale pitches, I don't know if it's sale pitches. One of the big reasons a lot of us modders wanted a 64-bit engine Skyrim is so we can mod it harder. And one of the problems we're dealing with now is we can't mod it harder because the Creation Club keeps breaking our mods. So yes, I hate the Creation Club and I don't like it. And I was going to talk about the Creation Club down the road a little bit later, but we opened up with this. So, what I would like to see for future Bethesda games like Elder Scrolls and Fallout and everything is if they really want to go with the microtransactions. Because here's the thing, for normal average people that do not mod and everything like that, this is fine. For people that just use the unofficial patch, because I know people that just use that, this does not break that. This is fine. Creation Club is fine. But the thing is, for everybody else that is not a vanilla gamer and not, a very slim that doesn't use just one or two mods, the Creation Club is like pure evil, I guess. Not because of what it is, it's because of the after effect it has. Um, what I would like to see in future games is you have a mod version of the game, which doesn't have the Creation Club version at all and doesn't get updated past the first handful. I don't know, first couple months, maybe half a year. It doesn't get updated, and then you have the full version of the game that has the Creation Club, gets all this other um, microtransactions shoved into it if they want everything. And here's the thing: I would pay full money for that. I would pay full money to have a version that is totally just untouched and doesn't have the microtransactions that keep breaking everything. I would pay to have that peace of mind, and I would give Bethesda my hard-earned money for that. Okay, the more mainstream audience is completely gonna buy the full package though, or they might buy both. I don't know. So they're not actually losing money, and they don't have to develop. They don't have to spend time on both sides. They just have to spend time on the one. It's just it gives consumers a peace of mind. One one side stops in development sooner and it gets pushed out. The other side continues to get developed and pushed out just a little bit later. That's all that is. I see no problem with this whatsoever. But I don't think we're going to see that. Um, yeah. As far as the actual contents for the Creation Club, hang on just a second here. As far as the actual contents of the Creation Club, I have found that most of it is not worth your time to invest in. Like there are some little tidbits that are interesting, but usually they charge arm and a leg for it in the past. I think they have rebalanced the price because I don't think they care anymore about the Pacific price because I think they're revamping the Creation Club store. But in the past, um, there's like a house that you can buy that's kind of interesting, but I think it's like $10 or $15, something like that. And it's like, wow, for like $5 more you could have got a DLC, and it's just, but it's just a house, Um, the survival thing might be worth it, but when they're selling it, it was super expensive, and it keeps going. Like this stuff is super pricey, but it doesn't do a whole lot, and it doesn't bring a lot of value. It's just not worth it, right? I recently played through the quest that was the Sentinels quest that you get with the free update when they release Anniversary Edition, and those of us at Special Edition got a handful of free Creation Club stuff. I got the Sentinel thing. I played through it. Excuse me, pardon me. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It wasn't really coherent necessarily. Um, but the problem is that a lot of NPCs didn't speak, and this is a problem with stuff that comes from Bethesda. Um, if it's a DLC size scenario, they're probably gonna have voice actors. If it's an independent thing like a mod that you download, they're probably gonna have voice actors, independent voice actors. If it's like a microtransaction mission based kind of thing that they're not selling for a whole lot of money, they're probably not going to have voice actors. And that was one of the things that drove me nuts. Way back in the day with Oblivion, I think the name of the mod was Heart of the Fiend. I played through that, and one of the things that irked me so much was everything else in the game was voiced, but that DLC sized mod was not voiced, and I struggled to get through it because of that reason. this this Skyrim microtransaction half DLC size contents was not voiced, and I had the same like cringe. So it was just kind of horrible, just kind of horrible experience, and I just kind of just sped through it just to make it less painful, kind of like ripping off a band-aid. So yeah, so that's kind of where the Creation Club is. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I I don't. I'm not saying it's a horrible thing. I'm saying that how they execute it, I don't like it, and I wouldn't like. Here's the thing: when they came out with the anniversary edition, I thought the anniversary edition was going to be a separate, locked off version of Skyrim SE with all the old Creation Club contents, and we weren't going to have the Creation Club store on it, and it was going to have all the bug fixes. Again, the bugs in a second. They're going to have all the bug fixes and everything, and it's like I would buy that. Not necessarily for the Creation Club contents, but if it's locked off and we're not going to be bothered by anything, I would buy that. I would buy a whole other game and I would give them money for that. No, it was just Skyrim SE with where you were paying a little bit less for all the Creation Club content. That's all that was. They were just trying to flush out all the old stuff to make room for new stuff. That's all it was. It's just like, well, I didn't like it before. I don't like it now. So, uh, yeah. Yeah. It doesn't run any better. It doesn't run any smoother. It doesn't come with any extra features or options. It just comes with the extra stuff you don't want. For most people, I would think. So yeah, that's my take on the Creation Club stuff. Uh, as far as bugs, there is so many bugs in this game still. There is so many game-breaking bugs that Bethesda refuses to fix. And refused to fix early on and refused to fix years later, like a decade later, they refused to fix. Well, not a decade later, 77 years later, they refused to fix it. And it's to the point where the community is trying to keep the patches going, trying to mitigate as much as this is. But some of this is engine based and some of this is code based. Now, I'm not going to go and point fingers necessarily, but there are video games that come out from smaller teams that have better code from lesser engines than this, and it is sad. It's very, very sad. So, the thing is, Bethesda will go and fix bugs for like their Creation Club contents, but they won't fix bugs in the base game. That irks me so hard. They also will not clean their loose files, or rather their loose codes that are doing nothing, which gobbles up a lot of extra resources and makes things just. I'm not going to go into gruely detail, but it's just like having a lot of extra clutter in the engine that just kind of just messes everything up. And if we're going to talk about the engine is infested with a lot of loose bits from previous generations of the engine that Bethesda has just went through denial, and people that are smarter than me has cracked open the executable and looked at the current version of the creation engine, seen previous generations all the way back to Gen 1 to Embryo, and found Embryo in creation engine. So all of this needs to be flushed out. All of this needs to be cleaned up and optimized. All of it. It's to the point where the modders are doing such a great job optimizing most of this, but what they're doing is they're basically donating their time moonlighting this project where they're reverse engineering all of this, trying to make it work better. And I don't understand why Bethesda just can't spend the time to just fix it. So, and you'll notice during when I'm talking about my issues with Skyrim, and don't get me wrong, I love Skyrim. I love Oblivion. I get frustrated with Morrowind. But I love these games. But you'll find that most of my frustration comes from technical support and technical issues. So, um, I get really frustrated with a lot of the breakage. And when I mod the game, you'll find out that at least half of my mods are actually there to fix the breakage. They're there to try to glue the world back together. Not really to change anything for the most part, which they do occasionally, but they're there just to fix things. Because Bethesda isn't fixing things. Bethesda actually breaks more things than they fix when they try to fix the other things that people don't care about. I'm gonna be honest, Oblivion was one of the least broken experiences I have ever had, but it was lightly broken here and there. I mean, the only brokenness I really had was the cure for vampirism, and the community fixed that, and it was fine, and I had no issue. So, when we got to Skyrim, everything broke. Which, by the way, we're going to talk about the Havoc engine. How come every game that uses the Havoc engine doesn't have the same problem as Skyrim? How come we can't go above 60 frames? Otherwise, the Havoc engine loses its mind because physics. For those who don't know, the Havoc engine controls the physics. And when you go over 60, everything just. The world gets destroyed basically. Everything that has physics just goes everywhere. But if you ever play any of the other games, and there's lots of games that use Havoc, because Havoc is not a Bethesda thing, um, for some reason, it's not a problem. For some reason, there's many other studios that can meld the Havoc engine with their physics engine, and they don't have a problem. But Bethesda can't figure it out. Why? I don't understand. And the wacky thing is, modders have figured out, for the most part, a rudimentary way to fix this problem. But Bethesda couldn't do it? Eh. So, it's one of those weird things. Quality control is something that I take very seriously. Oh, but we can't be bothered to fix the physics. We can't be bothered to give you if it could give you a bug free game, here, buy more microtransactions. That's what I'm getting here, and it's just, it really bothers me. And I haven't said anything for years, and now I'm saying something. But underneath all that is still a fun game, which actually, here's the thing. This is something that no one actually talks about. There is no competition for um, an Elder Scrolls open world. There really isn't. Um, some people come up with like, oh, this RPG or that RPG or this action game or that action game, but the thing is, they're not the same. They're entirely different. Skyrim, I'm going to use Skyrim as an example. Skyrim is about going to a place, killing all the bad people, looting it, and doing the quests on the side. And the weird thing is, there's not a lot of competition in that. And you're doing all of this in first person perspective. Can you do it in third person? Yeah. But does it feel right in third person? Not really. And if you do it in third person, it just kind of feels like you're missing the point of everything. So again, you just there's not any real competition there. So I feel like if there was competition, you would get a better product because they'd be forced to up their game. So this is one of the reasons why Elder Scrolls Online kind of failed at impressing me as being an Elder Scroll game. Elder Scrolls Online, pretty not terrible MMORPG, horrible Elder Scrolls game. Because the very core of what you do in Elder Scrolls, you cannot do in Elder Scrolls Online. You cannot raid dungeons, take all the loot, go and sell, rinse and repeat, and do a few quests on the side. It doesn't work like that. All you're doing in ESO is doing all the quests. And to be honest, when I played ESO, I so did not care about any of the story. I skipped over everything, and there were some times where I did get lost. Because I did not care about the quest of the story in ESO at all, because I was not invested. Because the world did not make me invested, like the other Elder Scroll games. Um, yeah. Do we dare talk about the launchers? I don't know. We talk about the launchers? Is the launchers actually something we actually should talk about? Uh, you know what? Yeah, sure. We'll talk about the launchers from what little I can remember off the back of my head. So, let's talk about Old Rim or Skyrim 32 launcher. You basically got to do most of the stuff there. Um, Revolution, Scythe, window or full screen, um, detailed like your graphics settings, all that stuff, right? But unlike Oblivion, you could not say, did you want these things? Did you not want these things? Did you want Bloom? Did you not want Bloom? All this stuff, right? Uh, and again, some people would say, well, why do you want to turn VSync off? Here's the thing. I like to turn VSync off and turn off the frame cap off so I see how much headroom I have when I go to mod. For those that don't know, even if you turn VSync off, there's still the invisible frame cap. I think it's called frame lock, and if you go to INI, you have to add the frame cap lock, and you have to add like equal 0 to like take that off. Now I don't leave that off in normal gameplay, but it is a thing. But yeah, you're very limited with the options. Now going over to Skyrim SE or Skyrim 64, you can run in full window. I love that we have full window. I love that we have full window. I love this that the new Skyrim has ambient occlusion, a very very watered down version that does not really affect my frames too much. But and I think we have like rain occlusion, which I do kind of leave on. Everything else, except for the 64-bit render, I more or less, well, I leave the snow shader on. Everything else I turn off. As far as the special shaders and options stuff, I turn off God rays because that's annoying. I turn off limb flares because God rays, limb flares, and everything else hurts my eyes. And, you know, even the new options, there's still no option for bloom. I will talk about bloom as I go on right after this. But basically, the biggest gripe I have goes to anti-aliasing. It became very clear with the newer version of Skyrim, they wanted to push newer technology. Now, I don't mind including newer technology. If I remember right, they have temporal AA in newer Skyrim. I might be mistaken about that, but it's a newer anti-aliasing. It's not MSAA, which was in the original Skyrim. I like having MSAA because at the time that the new Skyrim came out, I had a very different system than I have now, which was uh, basically the standard for what every modder was kind of using back then for Old Rim, and it was kind of subpar for modding New Rim. I had like I think it was a 4790K with 16 gigs of memory and a R9 390 and a crap ton of storage on SSD. That's pretty standard back then for the 32-bit Skyrim. It is pretty not standard for the 64-bit Skyrim. And you would say, well, it's within specs for recommendation. Yes, but not when you mod it. And here's the thing: the whole thing could be avoided if they included uh, FXAA, MSAA, and temporal AA. Just include all the anti-aliasing options, and you didn't have to worry about it. Because the older anti-aliasing, they say it uses more resources, but the thing is, it runs better than the newer hardware. They say it doesn't, but it actually does. The older stuff actually runs better and hits your system not as hard. So temporal AA at X4 actually hits your system harder than MSAA at X4. And FXAA doesn't really hit your system hardly at all, but it looks ugliest. So there you go. So you can guess what I was using. I was playing Special Edition with all basically FX because temporal Temporal hated me, but it also had the weird side effect. And I think there was something else. I think we found out that it was actually something else doing this, or it might have just been the anti-aliasing too. There was a weird fog effect, and I don't remember if it was actually the anti-aliasing or if it was the render distance or what it was. There was something weird about it. But what that really did well is it didn't let you see past a certain point, which helped you not see the pop in for the block load in. So when the world was loading in chunks, you didn't see everything loading in. So block that view. I don't mind that view. I want to see everything as clear as I can because reasons. So this is why options. Options, folks, options. Even in today's world, where there exists SAO, SAAO, I think it's SAO, whatever. Um, Temporal AA and FXAA, I still prefer to use MSAA even today, and I'll preach that to the sky. And I still just prefer to use the X4. I don't need the X6, X8, X12. I just use the X4. Straight up. Because there comes a point of diminishing return. So that's kind of like my gripe about that. Like, there's some things that were just that I wish I could say, oh yeah, because the special edition got so much right, but then they left so much off. And if I remember right, special edition didn't have the double cursor bug, which is nice. And you can actually play in window mode and change your brightness, which is also nice. Which I'll remind people that in Old Rim, I used to use a mod called Reimaginator or something of that effect. Basically, it changed a whole bunch of saturation levels and bloom levels and brightness levels inside the game using the script extender and the mod manager and or special powers if you went and got that version of that one. Um, I still prefer to use that as opposed to EMBs because it has no like performance loss, and I don't actually like using EMBs. I actually prefer just to have a ever so slightly more shaded, more saturated world than vanilla Skyrim. Uh, and that's what that mod does really well, which is shocking because most EMBs and special edition they focus on adding light effects or weather effects, and it's all the things I don't give a crap about. Lighting mods are kind of up in the air, so either I care or I don't care. But lighting mods to me are kind of like how they affect the shadows and where they have dynamic lighting or not dynamic lighting. So, uh, and I right now I'm just using realistic lighting overhaul, but it can get a little dark with that, so it's like whatever. A lot of people use ELFX, but I've had bulbish ELFX where it had pop-in lights over and over, so I don't use that one too much. But yeah, it's one of those things where there is a lot of good, and I do love a lot of the minor details that Special Edition did add. I was just hoping there would be more bug fixes. Um, And then of course AE didn't fix a damn thing. No, I'm hearing more. And by the way, I did watch a lot of other people's videos about what they didn't like about Skyrim, and I gotta be honest, there were two things that were consistent. They didn't like the combat, and they didn't like the story. So, well, story slash the world. So, I gotta be honest with you. I'm gonna talk the story about the story first. A lot of people complain that the world feels very shallow, and I gotta be honest with you. The first couple weeks I played Skyrim, the world did feel very, very, very shallow. And it's no more. The weird thing is, it's no more shallow than Oblivion. It's just in Oblivion, you're lost in the wilderness for a long time before you actually get to um, a town because, reasons. And you forget how shallow things are. To give context, Oblivion, I know it wasn't this way, but in Oblivion, it did feel like you had one person doing all the voices. I'm going to be honest with you. That's how shallow it really felt. The AI is not the greatest AI. Even back for its time, it was not the greatest AI. And that's only compounded by the problem with the engine and physics. Because the AI follows a pathfinding mechanic in the never mesh, and it interacts with certain other NPCs, and it follows a certain protocol. But the weird thing about it, though, is that it when you look at it and you actually study it, it seems pretty rudimentary and basic, but it's still impressive for what they did. But if you go any deeper, if you want to go deeper, it becomes very, very evident that attention was placed elsewhere. And what I mean by deeper is if you ever go into like the Hearthfire stuff, like go and you own a home, get a wife, you get a kid or two, whatever, and you try to have a conversation with your family members or whatever, they're very flat per se. They don't have a dynamic conversation with. They don't change based on what you say. They don't evolve with the atmosphere or things you do. They just kind of do one or two things, and that's kind of it. That's kind of the depth that the world kind of has, and one of its reasons is because I believe the philosophy in Skyrim is you're expected to just always keep forward and always keep slaughtering things. You're not expected to be character building or world building with your character and developing a personality for your character and the characters around you. I don't think that was ever actually planned. Would have been nice because that's kind of a cool aspect to it. It's an aspect that I liked about Dragon Age, but hey, for content, Dragon Age was also very shallow too, but it was shallow in a way where you didn't meet. Um, so you have that. As far as the story goes, it's very obvious that if you want to follow the path of the story, it's very obvious that the story is very linear in a sense that that there is a way you're supposed to go. There is a way that you're supposed to move forward, and the game does a really good job at keeping you facing that way. It even has NPCs at some point that keep telling you, hey, this is the way you gotta go. There's just not a lot of guesswork. And I can see the pros to that, and I can see the cons to that, and that doesn't really bother me. When I think about the game is supposed to be a power fantasy where you're supposed to keep moving forward, and it's the fighting that matters more than the actual how you get there and the journey to get there, which I don't know if I actually agree. To be totally honest with you, I almost agree. Not that it's the opposite. I kind of agree that it's an equilibrium kind of thing, where it's a little bit of both. This is why I like having followers, not really as pack mules, but I like having followers that talk to me and give me grief, but also give me comments, but then give me opinions, but also panic and keep cool and say weird things, but make me laugh. And I like Indigo. So I, so yeah, Skyrim is a little flat. Skyrim is a little shallow, and but the combat is not terrible. And I'll go into this. The combat is probably the best they could do for what they had at the time. And I will elaborate, okay? As I get done yawning, sorry, I'm extremely tired. If we were to change the combat, the only thing that I see them actually changing without ruining the combat is, remember, first person first, and to change the combat to where if, if you strike something, you don't just fade through the target, you actually make contact with the actual target. So if you strike something, it actually, quote unquote, feels like you make contact. If you take your sword and you swing it, you kind of like, when you make contact with the body, your sword kind of just stops. And then you hit it again, and your sword also kind of just stops. Um, and I think this is why so many people kind of like the bow, because there's like a thud when you shoot something, so it probably feels a bit more satisfying. And I know that there's something done to the Skyrim VR where they kind of initialized this, but there's really nothing quite like that in the normal Skyrim modding scene, and it's going to be interesting to see um, if the newer Skyrim can incorporate that, because that's the only thing I can think of. As far as, well, it's dated because all you're doing is swinging a sword, and all you're doing is casting fireballs, running away, or kiting the enemy, or a shield, or whatever. Okay, so here's the thing. If that's what you mean by it being dated, I have to break it to you. Every medieval style fantasy game is going to feel dated to you. They are. Because that is, please never, ever, ever look into Dungeons and Dragons, because that's pretty much all there is. Never look into, any kind of power fantasy. Any kind of, like, anything. Never look into anything that's medieval. Because you're gonna be so bored with the way you have to kill things. Yeah, because and what I think it is, I think a certain percentage of people were like, "Where's my guns?" No, you don't have none. Go away. You don't has it. Go away. So that's not this type of game. That's never this type of game. It'll never be that type of game. Go away. Um, Team Ottoman, sure, but at that point, that's all on you. Um, as far as story mechanics and facts, here's the weird thing about that. My number one gripe about any of the stories and factions and quests is that the Civil War was terrible. The fact that I was going to get my head chopped off and I was saved by a dragon that wanted to kill me, and then I have to decide which side I like more, the side that wanted to kill me or the side that is super racist and wants to murder everyone. Now, lore wise, I know who I should choose, but they both seem really evil. As a matter of fact, if you throw the elves into it, all three of them seem like they should all burn. So, uh, yeah, I'm almost to the point. If you really lay it out on the table and you really look at all the credentials, I'm almost to the point where it's like, hey, Alduin, I will help you. We're kind of at that point. There was never like a clear cut answer, and not for a good way. It was never a clear cut answer, and all for all the wrong reasons. It's like this is bad. This is also bad. Now make your choice. So yeah, I hated the Civil War. I hated it so much. I thought it was the worst part of the whole game. And by the way, the weird thing about the Civil War is that it'll actually go, and if you carefully crafted each hold and you went and did all the quests to become Thane and all the other holds, it'll go and completely render that completely obsolete. Um, in some cases, you won't be Thane anymore. And in some cases, you don't need to do all the quests to become Thane. Here, you help save the country. You can become Thane of my place wherever you want. I have seen this work out in any scenario. Uh, but then if you do that, you miss out on some of the quests. And some of the quests to become Thanes are actually really, really good, which means that the Civil War actually screws up the main game. In a lot of scenarios, you should probably not do the Civil War. I made it a point that no matter which side I side on, that I do all the Thane quests first. And my proxy, just to keep it simple, I do a lot of the whole quest before I become Thane, and then I go do the Civil War. Which means I more or less do everything before I do the Civil War, just so the Civil War doesn't like exclude me from any contents, because that's how broken it is, and it's not fun. But I do it not because I enjoy it. I do it because it helps me make money, it helps me level up, and it helps me get loot. It's a grind fest, basically. Um, but yeah, it's and I'm gonna be honest. the Civil War mechanic is why we have the story about the Thalmor and the White Gold Concordant, not the other way around. You cannot convince me other way. The more I learn about the game, the more I learn about the development of the game, the more I learn about the backstory, the more I learn about the whole situation involved in this game, the more I am convinced that the mechanic and the quest came first, and the story for Skyrim was attached later, which is all kinds of messed up. So think about this for a second. If we didn't have the Civil War, if that was never a thing, if we had something else, right? Something else to deal with, or if it was just not there, if we just didn't have anything like that at all, and we had everything else going on, and it was just a major dragon problem, that would mean the Thalmor and the White Gold Concordant had no reason to actually really exist. That means that the Thalmor attacking the Empire never would have happened because there's no reason to write that into history because the Skyrim Civil War thing wouldn't have existed in the game, which means that kind of a null point, which means there's so much stuff that undoes, and it makes the whole thing just kind of moot. And I'm going to be honest, because the Civil War breaks so much stuff, I am still looking for a mod that lets me just assassinate Alfred and just replace Alfred on the throne and leave everything untouched. That way, I don't have to pick a side. I don't have to do the Civil War. I can just get on with my life, and we can just pretend that never happened. But that is like, as far as the story goes, that is the worst part of the story. Um, the most hated NPC, for reasons that you do not know, probably gonna be Maven, because she is the most snarky NPC in the entire game. She goes out of the way to keep right into you, telling you to go away. The Cloud District guy in Whiterun has nothing on Maven. You have a good reason for bothering me. And she threatens you with factions that you lead. She, she tries to threaten you with you. Uh, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to throw her into the well, or I tried to murder her, or whatever, and just would not work. So, oh man, story wise, but yeah. Other than that, like, I think the rest of the story is okay, if not good. Like, oh, mechanic wise. Story wise, it's okay, but mechanic wise, I think shouting is really dumb. In some cases, shouting is overpowered, but shouting overall, I think, is really, really. Because why not just use magic? And again, the whole Thume and the whole dragons from the old world and from the ice world up above, I forget what it was called, and all that stuff was written in around time where Skyrim was released or after the fact. So if we didn't have the Dragonborn and the shouting, all that stuff would have been omitted anyway, and dragons just would have been normal dragons, which would have been more than enough. Dragons didn't need to shout. People didn't need to shout. Dragonborns don't need to shout. You know what Dragonborns could have had? Better stats, or explaining why they instantaneously can use magic better than anyone else because you start off with magic. Which is another weird thing that everyone believes is that everyone in the Elder Scroll universe has potential for magic, but yet for some weird reason it was explained in multiple games and in lore that some people just can't do magic because they suck. Which means that you being able to instantly do magic when you start the game means that you're special, even though it's primitive magic. Which, speaking of magic, speaking of magic, I like the magic system that we have. I hate the limited magic selection that we have. Oblivion had so much more magic, but for some reason, we've lost all that. There was magic in Oblivion that literally relied on you to get within touching distance. Now, granted, a lot of this was like discount spells, but I enjoyed said things. But the magic in Skyrim was more well thought out. It was on easy to access buttons. We no longer had to use the C button on the keyboard. We had two different casting hands. It made sense, but we had very limited spells. And for some reason, trap spells didn't seem to do as much damage as they should, and they weren't very practical. And for whatever reason, the final mastery spell for most classes was very lackluster. You know, it just there's a lot of things about the spell. Like I like the mechanic of the casting. I like the mechanic of magic in Skyrim. Okay, I don't like the selection. I also don't like the drop off in damage that the spells have. And I have went and tampered with different ways to power it up, but it's either magic becomes super overpowered or magic becomes super weak. And the reason it becomes super weak is because you don't really have a stepping stone to get like most weapons have like a primary passive like skill that ups your damage, right? Magic doesn't have that. You just learn more powerful magic. But after a certain point, that doesn't matter anymore. And the more powerful magic costs a considerable amount of um, mana or whatever SP, whatever you call it. The blue bar. The blue bar! So it's very likely you would cast a fireball at a Draugr, and a Draugr at high enough level would just kind of like, it would take some like health away, but it would shrug it off, and you would end up having to cast so many fireballs at it that it wouldn't do anything to it. That's kind of the problem there. Sir, this doesn't seem to be balanced, sir. Sir, ma'am. The fireball feels like a hot breath of air. Ma'am, sir. Thing. I get more damage if I use a hairdryer. Actually, technically, you would actually get more damage if you use the flame breath shout. But as we already discussed, that's really stupid and overpowered. So, a lot of people talk about how bows are overpowered. The weird thing about bows is usually I'll have a bow if I do a melee character because I need to find some way to reach dragons. As you've seen in this video, I'm just shooting everything because I'm trying to level up my bow. Because there's a point where my bow is just always dead last for something that level. Because usually I'll build up my character to be more of a berserker. Because that's fun to me. High health, reasonable amount of stamina, and just high damage output. I always enjoy that. But the weird thing about this is that people complain about, oh, it's this or it's that, and I find out what they're talking about. And literally, they're there just shooting the same thing forever and ever and ever, trying to force level this or force level, like, what is it, calm? They'll shoot calm at the same bear over and over and over. It's just, well, if you're trying to break the game, you can break it. If you go out of your way to break it, you can do that. But that's kind of on you? Question mark? Because it's kind of like you using an exploit. At that point, that's not the game. That's kind of just you. Kind of like how I downloaded a mod that turns off a lot of the console commands because I have went through console rehab because I know too much. So, yeah. Because sometimes knowing too much ruins the fun for the game. So, there's that. But, you still have to debug something run to something broken. But that's beside the point. But yeah, I don't think the combat's crap. I think the combat is pretty good. I think it could be slightly updated or slightly tweaked to have more like feeling to it. But I think the rudimentary format of the combat is where it needs to be for the most part. I think if they change it too much, it's going to go in the opposite direction. And we've seen that in video games before, where they change so much. And yeah. Take Fallout for example, and this is a really bad example, but there's so many people that want to do a melee run in Fallout 4, which you can still do. But then they run into the nadir, and they go, maybe I'm not going to do a melee run anymore. Which is literally a mutant with a nuke in his hand that just runs screaming at you. And yeah, there's no way to actually get past that besides killing it before it gets to you or shooting his hand off. So yeah, really weird. Just there is one thing I really hate about the combat in Skyrim is the Draugrs and dragons that use disarm shout. It's not the idea of disarming that's bad; it's the execution of disarming that's bad. So when they disarm you, your actual weapons or weapon, whichever, actually ends up going flying to who knows where, and you can, even if you kill the enemy, you're spending forever looking for the thing, and you don't know if it fell through the mesh. You don't know if it got stuck. You don't know if you're just not seeing it. You have no idea. And there was a mod that changed it to where I thought it should be, which was it changed instead of the item being dropped, it just disarmed you into it went back into your inventory, which I thought was totally fair. I think it even took it off your favorite bar, which is totally fair. Made complete sense. There's nothing wrong with that. But you didn't have to you didn't have to scour the landscape for your completely maxed out, upgraded, super rare glass or dragon bone sword or whatever. You know, because at some point that's just silly. Um, and at that point, if it just shot it back in the inventory, I would have no problem with it whatsoever. Yeah, it'll make the combat more challenging, but it's supposed to, right? It's supposed to. And if there was a cooldown of how long you had to wait before you could equip it, I have no problem with that. That's fine too. You would just see me running from the enemy like a little girl more. That's basically what you would end up seeing. But that's fair. That makes all the sense in the world. It's just you just don't want to lose like your gear for no reason. Hey, I spent hours making this set, yeah, and then you lost it. Yeah, that's really kind of BS. I have restarted and replayed hours of game time just so I didn't lose here. So yeah, that's really kind of that's a thing that shouldn't be a thing. Uh, and as far as gameplay, there's probably some other stuff like this too that I'm not thinking of. But like, it's all kinds of that. It's small things that you have to play the game and see that you go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. That's not that's not right. No, it's like the backwards flying dragon. The closer you get, the further away it gets. Wait a minute, that's not right. Well, oh. But the game overall is very fun. It's just there are a lot of things, and it's like what I want to see in the new Elden Elder Scrolls game is I want to see a lot of these issues be addressed. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I want to see a Elder Scrolls game that does not have hardly any at all bugs. I don't want to see any bugs at all, to be totally honest. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear about them. I don't want to notice them from start to finish. I literally think that because they're owned by Microsoft now, they should have the backing to hire really thorough testers, and they should have some people that are actually trying to break their game on a constant basis. And they should be able to be really thorough. And they should take the time and be really thorough about this because I don't want to see any bugs. The code should be flushed out. I don't want to hear about any spaghetti. Hello there. We will forget that that happened. But oh, I was smart enough. I blocked off background noise. Yay! Um, I don't want to hear about spaghetti code. I don't want to hear about the engine being still having bits and pieces of the older versions of the creation embryo engine. I don't want to hear about any of this stuff, right? I what I want is I want a good no matter what the product is, I want a good, flushed out, functional product. This is what I mostly want to hear about. Um What I'm really concerned with, though, what I'm absolutely concerned with is beforehand I thought that Bethesda was just going to launch it on the Windows Store, and of course it's going to be on the Windows Store, right? But I thought they weren't going to launch it on Steam. It looks like there's a very good chance they are going to launch it on Steam. So yay! And a lot of people are going to be like, "Why do you care if it's launched on Steam or Windows Store?" Well, if you get it on the Windows Store, it's more of an app folder system, which you cannot modify. If you get on Steam, it's just a raw file system, which you can modify if you're a modder. Again, everything I'm talking about is from the point of view of a PC user that likes to mod his games, because that's the whole point of having a Bethesda game. So, with that in mind, I am really worried that they are going to try to find a way where the only mods you can have are going to have to come through um, Bethesda's mod download tool, location, website, whatever. So you're going to have a user profile. You're going to have to log in. You're going to have to download it from them. And there's a whole different methodology about how to handle those mods versus normal mods anyway. But you can't just have any mod up on there too. So it's really weird. It's less free and it's more restricted. Um, but also it's gotta remember this is from Bethesda, so there's a chance that once the game loses or it's been so long, there's a chance that that page, website, server, whatever will get shut down and all the mods be lost. So that's the thing. The other thing is I'm worried that the creation engine is going to not creation engine. The creation club is going to be even more of a thing, and we are going to see even more breakage. So we're not. Not only are you probably, am I worried that you're probably not going to be able to use the SKSE or script extender, not SKSE. But I'm worried you're not going to be able to use the script extender with it. But I'm worried the Creation Club is going to be even more brokerage than Special Edition. Which, and here's the thing, if modding is too much of a nightmare in Elder Scrolls 6, a lot of the mod creators and mod users are just going to go back to Skyrim. Now, the game will sell regardless, because there's a lot of people that just want to play whatever the new shiny is for anywhere from a couple days to maybe a month. But then after that month, if the game does not make a good impression, is not like mod friendly or anything, you're going to see a sharp drop off. And it's basically just going to like drop off a freaking cliff. We've seen this with games before. Oh, we sold record high. Yeah, and what happened a month later? Uh, we don't see anything now. Yeah, yeah, because you didn't treat it very well. So, yeah. And I'm also worried the game's gonna have like always online DRM. I'm worried it's gonna be locked down. I'm worried all this. This is all stuff I'm worried about because this is kind of thing we see on modern games. And Bethesda has been very out of touch with people lately, so I'm very concerned. And you gotta remember, we have a bunch of different factions of Bethesda fans too. We have people that believe that Elder Scrolls Online should be the way that Elder Scrolls is taken now, which they're wrong. but they believe that. They are the smallest of the faction. We also have people to believe that the Skyrim style is the way we should go. That's probably arguably the largest way. And then we also have the second largest being like the Oblivion style, which I'm kind of leaning towards too, which is more of a traditional RPG style and storytelling style. And then you have the weirdos that are, you know, getting older that believe that Morrowind isn't gone yet. And we just kind of send them a cookie and send them to the corner. Morrowind is still a thing, darn it! It's like, well, as long as you keep modding it, I guess it is, but I'm not going to get into Morrowind right now. But Morrowind has its own issues, technical issues. Technical, not gameplay or anything else, just technical. I'm not going to get into it right now. You can send me all your hate down below. You're wrong. It was perfect. It was the best game ever. Uh-huh. Ask what people that like Daggerfall tell me. Uh-huh. I'm not judging. I'm just saying. The only people that are wrong is the ESO people. Oh. But yeah, no, it's just I find it very strange and very worrisome that lately things at Bethesda has been consolidating over the years and they've been simplifying stuff, and I hope it works out for them just fine. I just it seems like their priorities are in other places other than making their customers happy. It seems like they're just trying to get, money from the stone, as it were, and I'm just concerned. Now we go back to the whole idea, the very end question. Is Skyrim Special Edition worth it? Depends on who you are. If you are one of those people that just install the game and just play it straight up, then sure. But then you also just might be better off just getting Anniversary Edition. I'm not gonna lie. Because if you're just going to install it and play it how it is, and you're not even going to get the unofficial patch, then first off, Bethesda loves you, but also that makes things super simple. You might as well get the newest version with all the bells and whistles to give your game the best that it can possibly be, which isn't much. So that's fine. No problem with that whatsoever. Okay, so what if I'm a modder? Now, in the past, because Skyrim SE was a 64-bit engine, I would say the Skyrim SE actually makes more sense, although with caveats. Given the recent events, I'm more inclined to actually point people towards the Skyrim 32 with the legendary collection, which gives you Skyrim 32 and all the DLC, because you can usually find keys around the internet for like $10. Or if you can't find keys, just ask somebody that has the old RIM and they can give you the URL for the original page, and you can overpay by a lot. And the reason why for modders is a thing is because That game is never going to change. They're never going to update it. They're never going to change it. They're never going to do anything to it. So a lot of the older mods are never going to, let's say, broken. The only reason it would break is if a supporting mod gets updated and makes the corresponding mod obsolete. But that's bickering between authors, though. That has nothing to do with Bethesda. And the real difference is in Old Rim, the normal resolution was like 720, which the new resolution in SE is like 2K. So you will see a difference in like the shape that things are and things, but once you play for a few hours, you kind of get acclimated to it. Plus, Old Rim just runs better. It takes less resources. It runs better. It's whatever. The only downside to Old Rim is it takes a little bit more to mod because you have to account for um, the limited memory usage that it has. So you have to like finagle the fix that the community has given you. So you have to use EMB boost at the very least, and you're probably gonna want to play in full screen window, so you're gonna want to get the mod for that, and then you're gonna want to have the cursor bug fix, which should come in the same mod these days, so that's no big issue. And you're gonna want the unofficial patch at the very least. And because you can't change the brightness level inside the game when playing window mode with old Rim, you're gonna want to get the Reimaginary mod so you can change that. And at the most basic level, that should get you up and running just fine. And then you can just inject anything you want. Ah, oh man. So that's why. And the reason why I go over to Old Rim instead of SE is while SE is more consistent in their frames, the problem with SE is we never know when Bethesda's in. We just don't know. And we don't know if any of the mods we use are actually just going to be fixed or not. We don't know. It's one of those weird things where, like, we want Bethesda to stop fucking with it. But they don't. So, um, I do predict that when not Skyrim, yeah, when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I do believe that most of the focus is going to be shifted over to that. So I do believe a lot of the Creation Club content stuff is going to be shifted over to that, and I believe that most of the stuff involving with Skyrim is going to dry up and going to just stop. Unless it's must patch or must fix stuff, it's just going to dry up. They're not going to do anything with it anymore. It's just like Oblivion stuff, they're just going to stop. They're not going to do anything with Skyrim anymore, and they're going to move on. Which is a good thing for modders. So it's almost like we're looking forward to Elder Scrolls 6 so we can play Elder Scrolls 5 in that example. Which is super messed up. Which means I'm looking forward to Fallout 5 so I can play Fallout 4. So Bethesda takes their grubby little hands off of the Creation Club for Fallout 4. It's all kinds of weird things there, but that's just kind of how that breaks down. So yeah, if you fall in that category, then yeah, sure. But if you're a modder, no. If you're an average user, probably get an anniversary edition. If you're a modder that enjoys pain, then yeah, probably special edition. You know, like me. just, just how it is. Um, yeah. There's probably a few things I'm forgetting with this that I wanted to chill and talk about, but for the love of me, I can't figure it out. Um, I've been going back and forth making this several days, and I just I can't remember all the talking points. I had to make bullet points, and they're kind of random gibberish. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, but don't forget to follow me on my uh Twitch account, which I'll link down below, and don't forget to click the subscribe button because we have that here. And I'll see you next time. Peace.